Hi, I'm Terry Smith from Cooper Tyres. We're here today to talk about how to choose your four-wheel drive tyres. Simply looking at tread patterns, I'm going to give you a bit of an idea on what works in what conditions, so you have a bit of an idea on where you four-wheel drive, which one you should choose. We've picked four Coopers here, right across the range, from the heaviest traction mud patterns to the highway terrain. Let's start with the highway terrain and explain where it works. This is the HT, which means highway terrain. Have a look at some of the aspects. Solid rib in the centre makes the tyre very quiet on the road. A closed outer shoulder, again, makes the tyre quiet. Good handling, stability, fast cornering, as well as less uneven wear on the tyre, that heel and toe wear as the tyre gets older. Also lots of siping, which is fantastic on those wet, greasy roads. And a very straight through tread. We call these see-through treads, which means if you spin the tyre you'll see straight through that, and of course the water will go through the tyre and out the back. Keep the tyre flat on the ground, reduce aquaplaning. Be careful of some of the older treads in the highway terrains. They have some very low tread depths in the tyres. That's the other key aspect to look for. Make sure it has at least 10 millimetres running across the tread, through the pattern, as well as around the tyre. The other thing is, when we get to talk about dirt roads later, I'll just point out this, what they call sipes. These little tiny sipes that are fantastic for pumping water out and making them good on greasy roads, do exactly the opposite on dirt roads. They open up with every revolution, just like that, and again simply chip away faster. You can't help it, but let's look at the other tyres and see how it improves. This is the Cooper ATR, which stands for all-terrain radial, and that's what it does, great for all terrain. But on the road it's still pretty damn good. This centre solid rib makes the tyre drive straight, gives that more stability as well as less driver fatigue. Also what helps with less driver fatigue is these round edges on the tyre. Now a sharp square edge, which a lot of all-terrain tyres are, which is an old design with most, will make the tyre dig down. The trouble is they track on an uneven bitumen surface. These tyres are round, and that's the current thinking in four-wheel drive tyres, round edges and closed. You get less uneven wear, less driver fatigue, and then open the centre up. Make them straight. One is it gets the water through on the bitumen, but also just even it's wide and open for emptying material out. Of course these high beveled edges do the same thing as empty material out, and they work through emptying, getting traction, getting across the top. Great for everyday weekend four-wheel drive work. This is the Cooper ST. It stands for short track, and it's my favourite. I talked about the sharp edge design on the shoulder being an old design all-terrain tyres. Well, on the Cooper it's their latest design. They put the sharp edges back on for this particular tyre, and they've also offset the lug. And the reason they've done it is it's the most traction all-terrain you can buy in the market. It's absolutely fantastic. The sharp edge gives that stability in cornering when you're driving fast on dirt roads, makes it really stable. The offset lug is simply designed to dig below the surface and give you more traction. But watch out in those sharp, steep climbs if they're rocky, because they will rip those lugs. They're only small. They're really designed for the extra traction you need. Notice the tyre is open all the way through the tread pattern, whichever you look. And that's simply to empty the material out of it and get more traction. Notice also there's little sipes or cuts in the tyre. We talked about those being made to work on greasy roads. Well, they put them internal within the blocks, they don't go to the edges at all, and again that reduces the chipping off-road dramatically, so the tyre will simply wear longer. They still chip, but less than anything else you'll buy. The open groove right through the centre, that's simply to get the water through on wet bitumen. And my favourite, these little ribs in the carcass, what that actually is called is a stone ejector. And we've probably all had it where a stone has got into the tyre, buried its way into the carcass and stayed there and ended up giving you a flat tyre. Well, I'll spit them straight back out. They're fantastic. This is the Cooper STT Armortech 3. STT stands for Super Tyre Traction. That's exactly what it does. Now, commonly referred to as a muddy because most people in the past have bought this style of tyre for the mud. They have a far wider application than that, but let's talk about mud first. In mud you need the most open as possible to simply drop the mud out of it to get traction. Also, any decent mud tyre has got this scalloped on every alternate lug on the shoulder. And the purpose of the scallop is simply when you're going through the mud, trying to get out, you need that extra gap between before it bites again. And it gives you a nice solid sharp edge each time. Again, sharp edges on the side of the tread, and as we talked about, that's for stability in fast dirt driving. Makes it really nice, really stable. Stone ejectors, absolutely fantastic. As soon as you open that tyre up to empty the mud, you open up to get damage from stones or sticks sticking into that carcass and staying in there. and that protects it and also spits them back out. Also, noise is the thing with a traction pattern like this. Well, Cooper have thought about that in this latest tyre, and they've twisted their lugs and ran them longitudinally around the tyre. And what that's done is quieten the tyre down. Then they're still noisy compared to all-terrains, but very quiet compared to most other mud tyres. Something new they've done again is put a sipe in the tyre. You won't see them in mud tyres, and they put this little cut or slit in each block, and that again is to give that little bit extra traction on a greasy road on the bitumen. So they're really good on the road as well. You heard me call this an STT Armortec 3. Well, STT was super tyre traction. Armortec stands for the carcass construction, which is what's inside the tyre, and 3 stands for the amount of plies. Let me talk about the plies first. Today in radial tyres, 2 plies is the most commonly used. Cooper use a 2-ply construction in their all-terrains and their highway terrains, and they use the highest denier cord. A 2-ply Cooper is as strong as any 3-ply 4-wheel drive tyre in the marketplace. You don't need 3 plies to get the strength, you just need the really strong cords. So when Cooper decided to make a 3-ply tyre, they made it different. Let me show you what they did. This is a cutaway of the Cooper STT Armortec 3. This is looking right inside the tyre. Now all radial tyres are designed the same way today. The cords run at a 90-degree angle from the bead around the tyre, with a steel belt on top of the tyre. Now this carcass is where all the damage happens. If you notice that where the 2nd ply overlays, it runs at the same 90-degree angle. If it was a 3rd ply, it would run at the same 90-degree angle. Cooper came up with a brand new innovation. They kept this same strong 2-ply carcass without reducing the strength, and they added a single ply on top, only 1,000 denier, a little bit less than the other plies, but at an 8-degree angle. Notice it runs across at an 8-degree angle to the other plies. Now that does 2 things. One, it fills in the gaps between the rubber. And a lot of punches that we get today, or a lot of damage on tyres, is by sharp objects going through, and when it hits the cord is the strongest part, it goes off and goes into the rubber between the cords. And if they all run the same way, it'll go straight through the tyre. Of course, with the Armortec at the 8-degree angle, it reduces the rubber gaps by half. So therefore, it's more resistant to the damage. Cooper have shown that it's 33% stronger, or more resistant to punches going through the tyre. Now the other big advantage of this is the reduction in tearing, because it's one thing to get a puncture in a tyre, but it's the other thing where it absolutely destroys a tyre by tearing. And what I mean by that is this. If these cords run on top of one another, then when you get a nail in the tyre and the tyre under pressure, it starts to tear, it simply runs between the cords straight down the rubber, and the tyre is destroyed. With the Armortec, of course, as it starts to run, it butts up against the angle cord. So you get less tearing and less damage, and your tyre simply lasts longer. Now what I mean by that is, this is a cut-out section of a standard radial carcass. Could be a 2 or a 3-ply. It simply has had a nick in the top of it, and then it's put on a machine and it's actually ripped apart to see what the difference will be. And of course, same as you could do in the bush by getting a nail through the tyre or a piece of stick, then the tyre slowly rips. Notice how it's ripped straight down between the cords, hasn't even cut a cord. And this is the Armortec 3. Remember about the cover ply? All other brands, the plies run all the same direction, and the Cooper cover ply runs at an 8-degree angle, which means that as it tears, it should butt up against that ply and make it a lot harder to tear. So this one's had a nick in the top, it's been pulled apart again. Look what's happened. It didn't run down between the cords, it almost ripped them apart. It took 2.5 times more force to tear that tyre. That means 2.5 times less chances of you getting a torn tyre and getting a flat one in the bush. You're more likely to get home.